Intramuros was the biggest European city in Asia. It defines our culture. The problem is most of our officials do not appreciate it.
It's important because it's part of our history, part of our heritage, and one of the few physical evidences remaining of the Spanish period of Philippine history.
There are many good stories about Filipinos, people who headed the construction of the walls. The carvers were Filipinos also. It was a very exciting time. That's what I remember most, having a restoration force as big as Intramuros was at the time. Well, didn't exist anywhere in the country. When we came into Intramuros to work, what are we restoring? We do not know. How did it look, except for the ruined walls? That's why we have to dig pictures and pictures and pictures just to be able to provide a background.
And in the early days, it was really a dead town. Even when Casa Manila was finished, we would make whatever pakulo just to bring in people.
The greatest satisfaction I had was the presence of a good team because basically the three of us were the ones who set the initial directions of the Intramuros administration.
Since last year, I'm really amazed at how Intramuros has grown and has attracted so many people considering the problems we had in the beginning. They have thousands of people coming here and all of them are paying entrance fees, restaurants, all those cales. Can you imagine? It's alive.
You have many people saying that Intramuros should not be preserved because it is a colonial memory and that should be erased. I don't think so. So it's about time that our people should see Intramuros is not just a symbol of colonialization, but a symbol of our spirit to rise above that.
Ang Intramuros sa akin ay mahalaga. Ito ay naniniwala ako, ito lang ang Old Manila na siya ay nagpalago ng Metro Manila. Ito yung prime mover ng urbanization din ng Metro Manila. Kung wala Intramuros, wala yung Metro Manila. Kasi dito nagsimula yung malalaking eskwelahan, malalaking building, lahat ng opisina ng gobyerno. Ito lang ang lugar na may walled city o Ciudad Morada na tinatawag. Kaya nandito yung mahalagang building, tao, dito lumago. Pero no 1920 hanggang 1930, lumalabas na rin hanggang 1900, lumalabas na yung mayamang pamilya para magtayo ng malalaking bilya kasi masikip na rin Intramuros, mainit. Kailangan mag-expand, mga eskwelahan, lumabas sa Intramuros. Tulad na ng UST, lumabas siya no 1927. Tapos yung mga iba pa, Ateneo de Manila, nasunog siya no 1932. Tapos lumabas din siya. Sana magpatuloy, tuloy-tuloy na maayos sa Intramuros. Pagdating ng present generation, maayos na Intramuros na wala nang masyadong problema. Kasi sa ngayon may mga kakagibat pa rin problema. Nandiyan pa rin yung mga ibang informal settler na may na-relocate na kami, yung mga Esperanza. Siguro dadami pa ang turista sa atin kasi mabubuksan natin yung sa gitna. Tapos yung mga pavement ayos. Tapos yung mga travel ng tao, foreigner, mapapabilis kasi marami nagpapaliwanag. Sa ngayon dumadami na, may bum bike na, may e-trike, may kalesa na. Marami na nag-aano sa Intramuros kasi ngayon, nagiging ano na to, parang tuwing may Manila tour, laging Intramuros ang priority ng Department of Tourism, Heritage. Ako nga pala si Mr. Reynaldo Cadiz, nagtatrabaho sa Intramuros ng almost 40 years, from 1979 hanggang ngayon. Naging restoration inspector din ako sa Intramuros kasi lahat ng mga ginagawang restoration, idinaanan ko from stone cutting, tapos pagbubuhos, proper document. Bago siya gawin, babaklasin muna namin yung mga lumang bato, tapos papalitan namin, mga may crack na, papalitan namin ng bago. Minsan, nung early part ng documentation namin, naglalagay din kami ng mga number sa bato para maibalik namin yung structure sa dating ayos. Napaka-importante sa Intramuros kasi ito yung ano natin eh. Sa buhay ko napakahalaga to kasi dahil sa Intramuros nandito ako nagtrabaho 40 years, naging tanungan ako ng mga pangyayari dito na bagamat hindi ko inaabot iba, yung mga archaeology, tunnel na nahukay, mga artifacts, tinatanong ako, mga nahukay ng mass grave, halos lahat building na nirestore, kung ano ba yung mga dating opisina dito ng pre-war. Kasi nagbasa din ako ng mga libro na about sa archives namin. Tapos yung mga old photo, napakahusay ko mag-identify kasi kabisado ko yung old photo and then in new, yung pagkakaiba.
Intramuros is important because it is one destination, tourist destination in the city of Manila. And of course, this is a historical city. It is a city within a city because the schools are here, churches are here, institution, agencies, of course, the big churches here who always support the IA, and of course the training center who are here, the hospitals are within the city of Intramuros. My wish for Intramuros is orderly, clean city, and people should be in their perspective places. Like for instance, if hopefully in a couple of months or 3 months from now, the ISF will be relocated to resettlement site in Cavite or in Bulacan, because we want them to be in their respective homes. And of course, with that, Intramuros will rise again with this movement of informal settlers. We are not removing them from here because they are part of the community. They work here, they can come, they can live here, but they have to go to their respective permanent homes after resettlement. And of course, I wish also that Intramuros will be fully developed in terms of vacant lot, property. The owners will have this plan to develop their property here in Intramuros so that there will be no blighted areas anymore around. My name is Marieta V. Aliaga. I started working here in Intramuros in 1983, and this will be my 35th year in Intramuros administration. As Chief of the Urban Planning, I am responsible for the monitoring of construction in and around Intramuros. We are also in charge of the processing of the Intramuros Development Clearance.
IA's dedication in ensuring that tangible treasures that immortalize our history are now accessible to the public is commendable.
Congratulations to the Intramuros administration. I wasn't expecting that the collection can be so amazing. It was really an awesome experience seeing all of this collection, and it's like 30% only of the collection. I wish to see more. Again, congratulations.
Masasabi ko ito ay malaking isang tagumpay kasi matagal namin nakatago at hindi na i-display talaga sa public yan. Pangalawa, nagpalipat-lipat na ng location yan at ngayon, na-save natin.
Intramuros mahalaga para sa akin bilang Filipino kasi maraming bagay sa Pilipinas dito nagsimula sa Intramuros. Well, actually, more than reviving the structures, ang gusto ko talaga maintindihan ng tao kung anong kontribusyon ng Intramuros sa pagmuno ng Pilipinas. Kasi kung walang pagkilala, walang pagmahal, hindi siya mananatili. Fernando Sialsita ako, Professor Emeritus sa Ateneo de Manila, sa Department of Sociology and Anthropology. Ang mensahe ko lang, dapat mas nuanced, mas complex ang ating pagtingin sa kasaysayan. Kasi mahirap itong black and white pagtingin sa kasaysayan. Masyado moralistic, basta Kastila masama. Dapat mas three-dimensional pagtingin sa kasaysayan.
It was a very exciting time. That's what I remember most. I was on a holiday and I got a frantic call. Where are you anyway? They have been looking for you. And I said, what about? Having a restoration force as big as Intramuros was at the time, well, didn't exist anywhere in the country. I'm trying. When we came into Intramuros to work, what are we restoring? We do not know. How did it look, except for the ruined walls? That's why we have to dig pictures and pictures and pictures just to be able to provide a background and tell people this is important, this part of the walls look like this. Everything was something that came to us by a calling, you'd say, that we have to do it right. Intramuros is a beautiful memory of the past. It is like a microcosm of all things good and bad. There are many good stories about Filipinos, people who headed the construction of the walls, and they were Indios. The carvers were Filipinos also. People should follow the regulations more, and that they should not seek exemption all the time. And this applies to both government, church, and private owners. I'm Esperanza, Bunag, Gatbonton. I was hired, I would say, I was one of the first employed in the Intramuros administration structure, and that was pretty 1979. You have many people saying that Intramuros should not be preserved because it is a colonial memory and that should be erased. I don't think so. It represents failure. It represents achievement. So it's about time that our people should see Intramuros is not just a symbol of colonialization, but a symbol of our spirit to rise above that.
If there's something about Manila that hasn't changed ever since, it's the lovely sunrise and sunset, as if reminding us that in all the chaos, there's still beauty to find in this place we all call home. And moving around it every day, doing the things that we have to do, we completely forget the invaluable history that it holds and the endless possibilities it can achieve. As Intramuros administration celebrates its 40th year, we also celebrate its people. As we work together, inspire each other, and teach one another of the many ways why this city is a place we will always love to call home. Standing as one so that we never forget the past that taught us how to survive, so we can move forward with a strong heart to build a future that we can all be proud of. We are Intramuros.
Welcome everyone to our 14th episode of the Intramuros Learning Sessions. Our topic for today is about the Museo de Intramuros collection by our most esteemed guest, the historian and pioneer Filipino conservator, Dr. Esperanza Gatbonton. This Intramuros Learning Session is brought to you by the Intramuros Administration and don't forget to follow us in our social media channels. So we are available in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And for those who have missed our previous episodes, so we've already had 13 episodes. So you can go to our YouTube channel, just key in Intramuros Administration, or go to bit.ly/IAILS. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Before we start, here are some house rules first. If you would like to ask questions, you may send it to the Q&A button, which is also found in the lower portion of the screen. If you are viewing on Facebook, you may send your questions in the comment section. Please note that we will do our best to accommodate all the questions, subject of course to the availability of our speaker should we exceed the time limit. Only those who have successfully registered and viewed by Zoom will be eligible to get a certificate. A feedback form will then be emailed to you after the session, and the certificate will be sent within a week. If you are unable to attend the webinar, please let us know so we can give the slot to another registrant. Ensure as well that your audio is okay. Wear your reliable set of headphones. Don't be shy to ask questions and get yourself comfortable and enjoy. Now I'd like to call on the administrator of Intramuros who will introduce for us today our most eminent guest speaker. Administrator.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is a special day for us for the Intramuros learning sessions. Um, this is a time that is long overdue. When we speak of heritage, culture, arts, and Philippine studies, a few names comes into mind, but basically one of them is our valued guest for this afternoon, Dr. Esperanza Gatbonton. So, Dr. Gatbonton holds a Ph.D. in Philippine Studies from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She has been a pioneer. She has written numerous books and journals and articles as well regarding religious imagery in the Philippines. And she's what we always refer to as a pioneer in terms of the efforts of the Intramuros administration. So it is a privilege for us to have her as our guest this afternoon's sessions. Dr. Gatbonton, thank you for accepting our invitation for today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Administrator. I'd like to call on Dr. Gatbonton for the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Esperanza Gatbonton, and I'm happy to be with you this afternoon for this learning session. It really is an honor to be able to talk about the collection of the Intramuros administration. Before I begin with the actual presentation, I would like to quote from the book of O.D. Corpus, The Root of the Filipino Nation. Please let me read it. The natives were fashioning a culture that not only included accommodation to what could be escaped in colonial life, they made it the vehicle for preserving parts of the old culture. Most important, they created their own secret world, where they could be themselves, their haven from the burdens of the pueblo and the impositions of the church, both alien worlds. I chose this quotation to introduce our learning session for this afternoon with this quotation from O.D. Corpus because it sums up the coping mechanisms adopted by the early Filipinos in order to survive evangelization and colonialization. The archaeologist Dr. Robert Fox noted that prehistoric Filipinos had very selective approach for adapting influences and traits from Asia, only those adaptable to their sea and riverine culture, oriented lives, and in consonant with their level of technical development. Dr. Willem Solem, another archaeologist, added that local adaptation of borrowed influences continued to evolve through the interaction with other peoples of the archipelago and other outsiders, defining a unique Filipino ethos. I think our conversion to Catholicism took a similar route, hence the title, The Indio Response to Evangelization. I would like to focus also on the Niño brought by Magellan and the Nuestra Señora de Guia, an anito worship by pre-conquest Filipinos. The two would have inverse trajectory roles. The Niño Jesus from a revered Catholic image representing the Son of God to Anito, rainmaker in Cebu in the interim period after Magellan's death and Legazpi's arrival. The female Anito found in Ermita became the patroness of the galleons. It is possible that on both occasions, when these Anitos were taken away from them, the Indios felt bereft, dispossessed of the munificence that their Anitos brought them, good fortune, and material advantages. Their conversion to the Catholic faith in the early days of colonial occupation may have been psychologically conditioned, and the transfer of allegiance from the old to the new was part of the accommodation they had to make. Inasmuch as we are approaching the 500 years anniversary of Christianity in the Philippines, please allow me to give you a run through on how evangelization took root in the Philippines. At the time of Magellan's expedition, no religious instructions were given. The expeditions was simply based on trying to look for the Moluccas, and everything else in between was just uh, a prelude to whatever will happen. So, sorry. What? Ready? This is the one. What? I'm sorry. He's trying this out for the first time. Sorry, finish. These are the two. These are the two most important images. This is the Santo Niño de Cebu. All of you know that. But I'm sure you're not aware that this is the Nuestra Señora de Guia. She is without her cloth, the vestments. This is her original body. Okay? And this was taken sometime in 1980. The contact with Christianity is really very cursory from the very start. There was no actual idea of having to baptize, convert people. Their goal was to go to the Moluccas, but unfortunately, they landed at first in Samar, not in Cebu. So it was much, much later when they would be able to go there. But still, we can say that Christianity started with Magellan because in Limasawa, they had Mass. And that was the first time uh, people of the islanders, the few people who were there, saw what a mass is all about. Not they didn't understand it, but they know what ritual is. So the ringing of the bells, the vestment of the priests, the raising of the elevation of the host, the consecration of the wine and the drinking and eating of the bread, all of those meant something to them. They could sense that something was happening. And this is also what they're doing in their own rituals, offering, partaking of drink and drinking, actually getting drunk most of the time after the offerings, okay? And that first mass happened on Easter Sunday. But during that time, they also asked if they could put up a cross in one of the mountains. And the idea was for Magellan to tell them that if they worship the cross, they will be saved from the marauding enemies or other Spaniards who might take advantage of them, or there might be earthquakes, fires, whatever disaster, typhoons. All of this, the natives understood. They want it. Yes, they want the cross. If it will give them all of these benefits, why not? And so the cross was planted on the highest mountain. On the other hand, there was nothing that they could do to talk with Humabon. He was keeping them at bay. But two of their soldiers died, and so they were allowed to go to Cebu and bury two of their soldiers. And at the same time, they were able also to talk to the other people who kept being impressed by all the material benefits that the king of Spain could do for them, that the God of the Spaniards could do for them. All of these things. Why not? Why can we not know about this God of yours? And so Magellan said, but I cannot leave anybody with you. I have no one to teach you. Maybe I could arrange to have all of you baptized first. And so they said, yes, yes, we like that, but we must ask Humabon first if he would allow us to be baptized. So Magellan then said again, but it must be of your own free will. That you must give Magellan credit for. He said that. And they all said, yes, yes. And so Humabon said, I would like to be baptized also, but I have five chiefs who do not want to obey. Oh, lead me to them, and I will tell them, if you don't get baptized and follow your king, Humabon, they mean, we will have you executed, your properties um, expropriated and given to Humabon. And of course, all of the chiefs were aghast. No, 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 they want to be baptized. So there went free will. But in the end, 500 of them got baptized. The most important thing about this event also is that we meet for the first time Juana, the wife of Humabon. She was supposed to be a young, very lovely girl. And when she saw the Blessed Virgin and the Nino and the cross, she was so taken aback, and actually she started crying, according to Picabetta. And she said that she also would like to be baptized. She would like to keep the idols to replace her idols. So, but they said no. You see, before that, Magellan said, if you're going to be baptized, you must burn and throw away all your idols. Presumably, they were supposed to have done that. We do not know that for a fact. But Juana was given eventually the idols when she attended Mass. Particularly, it was actually the Santo Niño, which she liked. And it did replace her idols, but the Niño became an idol because he was a rainmaker as far as the Cebu people were concerned. They became, as Legazpi would say, they had apostatized. Therefore, they should be punished. We can wage war on them. They did not keep their word. But as far as Juana and the Cebuanos were concerned, they did venerate the Nino, and they would celebrate whenever there is a drought. They would bring him out in a procession. There would be an altar in the field. They would offer flowers. They would dance. They would sing. But if the drought gets prolonged, they would take him to the sea and dunk them in the water. But I was thinking that perhaps he would always perform some kind of miracle because 44 years in between, and when they found him, he had only the paint on his nose, the encarnado on the nose, and part of the face falling off. So he must not have stayed in the water for a very long time. So, but when the rains came, another procession, another merrymaking. So that was the role of the Santo Niño. Now, the expedition of Legazpi is an entirely different thing from Magellan. Legazpi was specifically told to record and observe the islands that they will be visiting. Record down what kind of commerce there is, what products, etc. If it is promising as a trading partner, can it be exploited? Put it that way. You see, by the time that Legazpi is arrive at the Philippines, the Spaniards were already flat broke. They need to expand. So that was really an expansion that they have to do, territorial expansion. But being Catholic kings, they have that promise to the Pope that they will help propagate the faith. So they have to bring missionaries. And bringing the missionaries with them, there was a specific instruction. Do not teach Spanish to them per se. The missionaries must learn the language from the naturales. So that will have a very, very lasting effect on us. So, but in with the Spaniards, whenever they go to places, they have what they call, they have to perform a ritual, and they have to do the requerimiento. And this is the Spanish rule of engagement with the natives in any land they colonized. They had to follow certain legal processes. The requerimiento has to be read aloud. It is a legal document requesting friendship, but it really is an imposition expressed in courtly terms, demanding unequivocal acceptance of the king Felipe as their sovereign and forcible conversion to Catholicism. Fray Andres Urdaneta, with the Malay conscript acting as interpreter, accompanied the soldiers that landed to announce 3 times that they came in peace. But if they continued the belligerence, war will ensue. Why was this great resistance to the Legazpi expedition rather than Magellan. With Magellan, they were friendly. With Legazpi, they were refused in all the other islands they attended. Because 2 years previously, the Portuguese came and enslaved a lot of people, took them to Ternate, and sold them off as slaves. And those who resisted in the towns and villages were, of course, killed. So anyone who looked like the Portuguese, they didn't know Portuguese or Spanish, one or the other, they all of them refused to take them in, refused to give them food. So that even with Sikatuna and Sigala in Bohol, remember the blood compact with the Sikatuna, he even he said, yes, we can be your friend, but we can give you food. We cannot assist you because our people do not like it. So, but they kind of encourage Legazpi, go to Cebu. It's a better port. It's more prosperous than ours. So Legazpi went. But of course, at that time, it's Tupas who's now the head of of Cebu, and they resisted also. But Fray Ordaneta went to shore and started uh, talking aloud, but I don't think anybody understood what they were trying to say, even with the Malay interpreted. So, but as far as Legazpi was concerned, it was a just war because they are resisting, and that makes it legal. But why is it very important that they agree to the requerimiento? Why do they have to be converted? And this, well, of course, the Santo Niños found, and they were trying to get him back. Apparently, they forgot all about him. It was all packed up, but they forgot about it because they burned the village. But they came back to get him back, but Legazpi said no. There he is in an altar. And after that, he offered that, okay, I am not going to punish you for fighting with us. We're going to treat all of these relative of yours that we have captured, we will release them to you, but you will be our friends, you will not fight us back. So Tupas, of course, there was some kind of bargaining, and they were told, you will not pay taxes for 1 year, all you and all of your relatives. Why was that again? Uh, the observance of the requerimiento is crucial to pacification of the Indios. Pacification is important to facilitate religious instructions and propagate the faith. After baptism, Indios became children of God, but subjects of the King of Spain. The king lays claim to their territory, and tributes and taxes can now be collected legally, so that our territories become Islas Filipinas after Felipe. But we are not, we are just subjects of Spain, okay? Well, after they pledged allegiance, they went back, and 1571, Legazpi moves to Manila. And there, what happens is another occurrence when they found the Virgin. This is the Nuestra Senora de Guia, found yet from yesterday, the date June 24, 1571. And she is made of molave, the upper part, the head, Nara, the body. And she was in a little, well, it's like a bower where you have all of this pandan and all kinds of trees. and the natives just go there. But I would like you to remember how she was dressed. See, it's like our sarong. And many people have never seen her undressed, as it were. But that's a dress, real dress. Okay? So I just wanted you to show that to you and keep that in mind. This is how she will be remembered. They will see her next. They are going to dress her up. And by the 18th century, this is the kind of um, prints that they will giving out as estampitas, as pictures. So she was again appropriated by the Spaniards and became very important because she became patroness of the galleon. And whenever the galleons came in, as soon as they enter Manila Bay, they start firing their cannons to salute her. And if they are delayed at sea, processions are taken from Ermita to the cathedral every day until the galleons come safely into bay. So that was how they controlled the two images, really controlled the fate of the early Philippines, no? Now, the images of saints, when do we start having them? The first reference that we get is from Chirino, and it talks about Father Sedenio getting Chinese artists. I don't know about Chinese artists, but they are to they taught him, they rather, he taught them to paint images of the Blessed Mother. The word used was Blessed Mother. And they distributed this to the homes of the Spaniards and all of the churches. So that was the first mention of uh, Father Sedenio. 1585 is when he arrived in the Philippines. Now, conventional wisdom says that the first images were copied from books or from images brought in by the missionaries. The carvings and paintings of images were done under the supervision of priests. Images used in churches fall under this category. Then a second category were for ordinary Indios living in the within the oh, I'm sorry, the Indios living outside the peripheries of the church bells. However, we have our first woodcut that we would know, and that was in 1613 by Tomas Pinpin and Domingo Lawag. I do not know which of them actually did the woodcut of the Nacimiento. It was always assumed that it was Pinpin. Why was it the Christmas nativity scene? Because this was done by the Franciscans. And you know that Saint Francis of Assisi was the first one who promoted the nativity creche with live animals at that. So this is what the earliest print that we know done by a Filipino. There was another one by Antonio Damba, which was a little earlier than this, but I do not know if the print was done by them. Two angels with a chalice, but this I know was done by one or the other. This will prove that the Ladinos who were taught how to speak in Spanish and adapt Spanish ways will be instrumental, will bridge the gap and bring us closer to the Catholic religion, but always also bringing in our point of view. And you will see how they will be doing this. So we have, from the collection of the Intramuros administration, we have some of the most fantastic uh, images. And this is Sagrada Familia. Everywhere you go in the Philippines, Sagrada Familia is known, even if it's in Spanish, because family is very important to us. And look at how this is done. I'm sure most of you will say, ugh, so ugly. Ah, please look very well. Remember that these people are not supposed to be sculptors. It was Francisco Combes, the Jesuits, in Labor Evangelica. He says, the natives are very good. They know all the trades. Whatever they need in their own household, they will do it themselves. They don't need any outsiders. So we are assuming that the people, if they want to have, if they want to have their carving representing saints, one of them will be doing it or somebody close to them. But look how this is done. The Nino is supposed to be blessing, but the way he puts out his hand, it's like, are you saying goodbye or are you saying hello? And look how they united they are. The linear development of the folds of the clothes. You might say, cut from the same cloth. They're really one family. But there is something else. Look at the hand of the Blessed Mother. She puts it on top of the head of the Christ. It's a real nanay, no? Being proud, doing this to her child. You know very well he's God. But it didn't matter. She just reaches out to him. And Saint Joseph is there looking and kind of venerable face, even side view. And this one, you cannot deny that that's a Filipina face, diba? It's but then it's so intense. Look at the eyes. I'm sure she represents the Virgin. You have the veil, and it is something that whatever they make, they want it to be a representative of that particular santo. It is that. You accept it. It's like an intentional fallacy, whatever it is they want. Here is another one, the mother and child. We're talking of untrained carvers, but look at the way this is carved. The carver has a very good grasp of proportion. Look at the size of the baby Jesus, approximating the body of the mother. In many of the other carvings in later period, you will see that the baby Jesus is almost like a doll. But this one, it is a real child. And look at the face is also nothing ethereal in both faces. They are our image. And the hand of the Virgin, her hand has known hard labor. It is us. This is us coming from our own culture at that time that these things were being made. And these are, of course, the first very popular saints. Why? When the Spaniards came, all kinds of diseases were brought in. So San Roque is a patron for uh, diseases. He was one of those who died in a plague. And he was supposed to be ministering the sick when he died and got infected. And there is this story, I'm sure you know all about it, that a dog from a nearby mansion or palace would disappear every day, bringing with him a loaf of bread to bring to San Roque because he was all alone in the forest. But an angel also had come to minister to him. But this was a familiar santo that they could relate to because they had some idol, some anito in their own background to whom they go and pray for deliverance from illnesses who can cure them. But this kind of illnesses they are now experiencing are too new. It's like the COVID-19 now. We don't know how to react to it. Those people also, they thought Adi Santo will be able to help us. So most of the San Roque has this contrapeste against plagues, um, against plagues in his placard that the angel is carrying. But here also, look how they own him. They try to own him. They put a salakot on his head. And of course, here you find him rather squat, but very good carving in the face. And this kind of carving will be very typical of Pangasinan Santos. Every time you see this, you can almost bet your money that it is from Pangasinan. Now, in a tableau, you have it tells the story of the saints, what they're all about. Here, San Roque with a dog and an angel holding a placard, and there's a dog. Normally, where the wound is, the dog will be there, but here, it he's on the other side because he's supposed to be licking the wound so that it will get better. But in the story, it was the angel ministering to him. Okay? And now this is an Isidro Labrador. You see how the contrast is you have very little uh, figures of the patron and the angel and the animal plowing the field, and you have San Isidro Labrador. These are because we are agriculturists, most of our people. And this is, I guess, that is for him digging the soil so that he can plant the seed. The next one you will see is actually, these are the more upscale kind of carvings. And you have, this is from Leyte. It's a rather rich looking San Roque. And you have a very good base, reminiscent of the Rococo style, and the angel there. I don't know if this means that this is broken. And now the other one, this is strange. His belt, the cord that he's wearing, has 3 knots, which means the Franciscan belt, but it's not. And here, the angel is an afterthought. They kind of just put him there. See, there is a nail. He is an extension there. There's a nail connecting him to the base. But the carving of the angel, compared to the San Roque and the dog, is not of the same quality. But it does send a message. Here you have 2 particular, very similar styles, even the stance. But here, this one is more busy, and the face images the pain that he is feeling. You, if you can look at this face closely, but it's almost like one was copied from the other. I do not know which was first, which copied what, but there is that kind of influence. Now, this is an Isidro Labrador, very nicely done. Actually, he's a bit lazy for a farmer. He likes to pray more. So he and his wife are always praying. So finally, because God was so pleased with them, so the story goes that they like to pray a lot. Pero, at the same time, the fields must be plowed and they have to uh, pay the farmer his share, the owner of the land, the landlord. So he sends angels to plow the fields, and you will see them later with San Roque, or rather with San Isidro. There you have the two San Isidro presentations. Okay, bigger than life. He's right there, and all the supporting cast at the rear. The perspective is very clear. They are far, that's why they're very small. But really, they're much, much too small. But there is a kind of perspective that the, the, the carver has been able to impart. And what I wonder about is in many of these things that I have seen, the Carabao's faces is never shown. I think sometimes they probably don't know how to, to do the face of the Carabao. Here you have an attempt of having a rococo frame and a colorful one. And the perspective also here is better achieved because you see all of those, the distance receding because of the different colors. And you have the angel here. So, but these are of different types, and I would say both are naive style. This is San Juan Bautista. I chose them because there's something wrong with them, I think. Here it says San Juan Bautista. Probably really is. But take a look. He is holding a book. And that is not a lamb. That looks like an ox. So he's not an evangelist. Was the carver confused? San Juan Evangelista is the one with the book, but not carrying an ox. It should be an eagle. But there he is. It says San Juan Bautista. And I guess in that household, he is San Juan Bautista. And now this is more or less, this is correct, San Juan Bautista. But even then, look, that is again a book. There is a lamp, but that is a book. So there are things not understood, but are remembered by association. And ang carver, we just, I'll put it there. Nobody's going to question it anyway. It's in the private home, okay? But this kind of styling of the animal skin cloth garment, this is unique to the Philippines. This is always used this way. But this is a bit rare, the way it's done. And I think this is a young San Juan, not an older San Juan. I was looking for the lamb. I was hoping that that would be the lamb, but it isn't. I don't know what it is. So you see that in the execution of this expression of the faith. It doesn't matter really how correct you are in using symbols to relate or tell you who that image is. Sometimes, as in this case, it's a confusion. All right. And we have here San Vicente Ferrer. He is the angel of Judgment Day. But again here, this sun is supposed to contain his hand pointing upwards to heaven. That means he's telling them, listen to me, the day of judgment is at hand. Repent your sin. That's what he was supposed to say. And that book contains all his preachings. But look at the angels. It's supposedly a trumpet. There should be clouds here, and the trumpet is coming out from there, announcing the day of judgment. But here you have a little angel nagtatambol. And I don't know what this little angel here is offering him. And this takes the cake as far as I'm concerned. He is playing, I think, the flute, not the trumpet, and nakaupo sa bangko. Isn't that so charming? I like things like that because it brings our surroundings. It puts us in place. This is here. And that is very important in identifying yourself in terms of the imagery. The Immaculada Conception, this is very different. And here you see she is old, not young. But what is important here, they are now developing a new way of showing her, presenting her. Generally, she steps on the crescent moon. That's part of her base. But what does the carver do? Parang ibinorda. The crescent moon is embroidered into her garment, and it looks almost like a flower base also, Pat, because there is the flowers. Remember the attributes of the Immaculate Conception, the rose of Sharon, the lily among thorns. So the flowering plants here are represented, a representation of the symbolism of the Immaculate Conception. Here is another one in another vein, but here again is the moon. It's like it's embroidered into her dress. And you almost see the kinetic movement, the busyness of how this is unfurled in her arms. It is, because she's the Virgin of Turumba. And it's almost like, you know what the Virgin of Turumba is? There's too much movement and dancing in the procession. That's why it's Turumba. And you could almost see these things wiggling and blowing the wind as they move. So this is another development. But actually, the Virgin here that they are representing as Immaculada Conception as part of Turumba is actually the Virgin of Solitude. So again, may kamalian ng konti. Now, we have the folk tradition. What was previously shown can also be regarded as a folk tradition. This is Santa de Casa, dressed in the garb of the Agustinian nuns. That's her wimple, the entire thing. is a wimple, the cover of the head covering, the collar here like a bib, and then the Augustinian belt. And whenever you see this kind of sleeves, generally it means it belongs to an Augustinian saint. This other one is the Sorrowful Mother. Take a look at this. This is not a wimple. This is a rostrillo, or the radiance around her face. And this is a handkerchief or a kerchief to contain her tears, to wipe away her tears. And look at how it's folded. I was almost remembering Dita Sandico or her beautiful Sinamay creations. And look at this. And I was sure that I have seen this somewhere, but I could not remember until I recalled a print that was given to me by Ambet Ocampo. And take a look. Sure enough, there it is. There is that big similarity, and this is from an 1853 print. It was a restrike by Ofelia Helvitson, and she's known as Nuestra Señora de los Dolores. This is a picture taken in 1904. Sorry, it was a very bad copy, but focus on the handkerchief and now the 7 swords. And look at this handkerchief again, and that is the bleeding heart. But there you have the rostrillo and another imagery, what they call the resplendor, okay, behind the Virgin. So this is the actual print, the entire one that was done. There is no, the name of the printer is not given, but only that it was in 1853, and it was restruck by Ophelia Elveson. And Ambet gave this to me, a copy, to remind me that I have to work on my book again. But that was a long time ago. Okay. Nasaan na po tayo? Sorry. This is another Dolorosa image. Dressed like a nun. There is this is a wimple again. This is a strange one, but it comes out. Generally, when you see this in a taller form, this would refer to the Ushnisha that you find in Buddhist images, Chinese Buddhist images. That is the protrusion of on the heads of Buddhist sages. That means they're very wise. But here, it is kind of folded. I was surprised to find it in a wooden image of that is you would say folk art tradition. But I am again looking at this, the kerchief. Why was it folded like that? It's for wiping her tears. She has lots to cry about. But why was it folded like that? And then I was talking with Dino, the curator of the IA Museum. Hey, do you know what? How do we keep our clothes before? Maybe in tampipe and it's folded. And when you use it, it comes out like that. And so, how does a carver show it the way he has seen it? And I think that would explain that. Of course, you don't have to take my word for it, but I thought it's a nice way of looking at it because we have to see our carvers in their own background. We didn't have books, we didn't have pictures, we didn't have too many uh, santos to copy from. These are mostly from the provincial areas. So these are folk art tradition, but it's very well carved. Look at her face. Really, the sorrow is all there. The hand grasping. And this is really fantastic. It brings you to her face. This is not, this is very well carved. So but the picture is very badly taken. I'm sorry. But I wanted to show you what perception is all about, and attitude. Here the snake is there, and the crescent moon is here on top of the belly of the snake, and she is barefooted. She's stepping on the crescent moon. Fantastic imagination to put it in that context. And there is that desire to be different, maybe, or to look at it in a different way, because this carver is very good. Look at her face, looking up, unperturbed at what's happening down there. And I'm sure she could feel it. She's not wearing any shoes. And then this is, to me, one of the treasures of the Intramuros administration. We all know about the rage for Victorian dome glasses, that where you keep your treasured ivory collection or floral nacre, floral arrangements, or anything that is nice, you put it under there. But this is an intrepid Indio. He cannot afford to have that kind of redoma. So what does he do? He was not going to be deprived of an opportunity to create his own redoma. He responds with aplomb to the vogue of Victorian glass and ivory images. His ingenuity sourced discarded bottle, modeled figures from cardboard, dressed with paint, glitters, and glue. No pomp and circumstance, only a deep, abiding faith to honor Christ. And I thought it is really so fantastic because remember that in the crucifixion scene, there is an angel that comes around this side, catching the flow of blood from the Christ with a golden chalice. But here the Virgin Mary, look at what is sitting on her head. Palayok. Was that meant to catch the dripping of the blood? Isn't that so fantastic? That in his own background, he creates this. And it's so complete. It's so, to me, it's very, very compelling. Because look at another one that is done in a similar vein. This one, compared to that, I call this a copycat. This is quite expensive decanter, water decanter. And he uses wax, some lace, and something crocheted. But you really cannot even see what it's trying to say. It's so busy. It's so, in a way, for me, it's so pretentious compared to this. So there is attitude there. And a lot of the image makers coming from that background have this abiding faith They do not care that this will resemble high art or this will resemble low art. There's no such thing. It is what is being offered. And I think that makes a lot of difference to that kind of very that faith that is so just so basic, so elemental. And I find that in a lot of the santos, most of which you might call ugly. Take a look at this. Are you going to say, are they unlikely angels? Are they what you might call mamarochos, grotesqueries? But this is a pair of acta indigene. I remember being asked by Dr. Laya, are you sure those are angels? Well, that's what the catalog says, and that's what they were supposed to be when they were bought. So we take it as it was given to us and take a look. This is the strap here. Normally, the Agta people would have this, and at the back of this would be hanging something for gathering beehives, sometimes for holding poison arrow. And their belt, they're wearing shorts, not bahag, no? And it's held up by the same kind of rattan belt. But why not? Are they not thinking we were made in the image of God? Were we not? Can we not be part of the nativity scene? And I thought, why not? And I remember this is now Muhammad Ali. There was a story going around some time ago that as a young man, he was going to churches, visiting even in Europe, and he said, he kept asking, are there no black angels? Why are all the angels white? Why are all the saints white? Are there no black people in heaven? And then he started laughing and he said, oh yeah, there must be, but there must be, but there must be somewhere in the kitchen cooking. So that, but he was just laughing, and I don't think he meant anything uh, radical about it, the way things are shaping up now. But I'm thinking that perhaps for our people in the early days, there was the desire not to look like Spaniards, but to be, we are people of God. Can we not be part of His kingdom? Can we not say that we are also like Him, made in the likeness of God? And here is another, this is very small, about 10 inches, maybe less even. But look again, he's not wearing a crown of thorns. He's wearing a headband. This is, you see this in the north. Sometimes they have this made up of rattan or something like a woven plant material. But here you have the Christ wearing that and not the crown of thorns. Now these are, oh, sorry. Now, cannot say that these people who painted and carved this are not knowledgeable about art. Perhaps not in a schooled way, but they have a very unique perception in terms of perspective. Take a look at this. The Christ rises above them. And he's just at the center of it. You'd know that. Because this thing plants him there, right in the center. But at the same time, distance is there. Oh my, I'm sorry. And then here are the two thieves, a little behind Christ, but beside him. But look at the way the arms are hanging on the cross. They're not impaled, but they're like just hanging there, and they look like rubber band over there. And here, how successful they are in putting the Virgin, and I think these are the three Marys. You have red, it brings them forward in the forefront, so that the the lapping of the the distancing of the objects are very, very pronounced. It's busy, but you know that there are spaces in between them. There is also distance. And sayang, this one, there is no, the urna is broken here. And this is supposed to be the sun and the moon. The sun is fading, the moon is coming out. And actually, when this is happening, Christ is still alive. His eyes are open. So that all these things happening here, maybe the crying, the grief that they're expressing, he can hear all of it. And here you have another one, very tightly packed. Even here it's so busy, busy, busy. But here he creates an opening that you know that there is a distance again, and there these people, this is Mary and Saint John, this is Saint John, and this is Mary, maybe Magdalene, but this is the Blessed Virgin. And the sun is not supposed to be shining, so his eyes are almost closed, his mouth is closed, but the moon is coming up. It's telling you something. And then this is the skull of Adam at the foot of the cross. The storyline is so perfect. It's so complete. If you know the story of the crucifixion, or if you don't know it, you will understand it. And you have the cherubs there. But these are both hardwood, especially this one. It must have been very hard to carve. Now, I brought up the Ladinos because, as I said, they are not supposed, the missionaries were supposed to learn from the naturales how to speak the language, the Wicca. And that desire of the king, or that instruction of the king, was very, very good for saving our script and saving our languages. If it were not for that, we would have learned Spanish, perhaps studied spoken Spanish, but we would have lost all of these treasures that we now have compiled in the memories that they have left behind us. So you have names like Antonio Damba, his Kapampangan, and then you have Nicolas Bagay, Indio Tagalog. You have a lot of names. Di Matangso is another one. And I kind of think, oh my goodness, Di Matangso, you cannot fool him. That's what it means. So here we have the function of church images. For instructions of the unlettered, who might learn from them as if from books, so that the mystery of the incarnation and the examples of the saints might remain more firmly in our memory by being daily represented to our eyes, to excite the emotions which are more effectively aroused by things seen than by things heard. This is from Santo Tomas de Aquino, or Saint Thomas of Aquinas, and San Gregorio Magno. Images are to be employed in churches so that those who are illiterate might at least read by seeing on the walls what they cannot read in books. Okay? That is, now, this is one of the most challenging iconography that people of the 17th century had to deal with. And this is the Immaculate Conception. This was declared a dogma in the 19th century, but much earlier than that, she was already proclaimed as the patroness of the Philippines when the cathedral was built. And already we have in Mindoro and in other places, you would have a church that was named after her already. So much earlier than that, the Immaculate Conception was held up to us as pure and chaste. Why was this? The Spaniards, the missionaries, were always so convinced that we were not chaste people. Okay, they have different. For one, we were not fully clothed. We jump into the river with the men all bathing together. That was scandalous as far as they're concerned. But it was just natural for us. And well, there were other things that they cannot understand, and we are behaving in a most improper way to them as far as they're concerned. So they chose a very hard model to follow. It is the Immaculate Conception. But ironically, the Immaculate Conception, much as we love her, the Virgin Mary, it is as a mother, as a mother, that she is remembered, Inang Maria. But still, we commemorate her in relieves like this, which is beautiful as the moon, bright as the sun. This is from the Canticle of Canticles. That inspired the artist to render the Immaculate Conception. And all of these little things here tells the story of her chastity, of her purity, of being conceived without sin. How do they show that? It was, how do they show that if they just say the Blessed Virgin, the Immaculada Concepcion? They don't know how to show it. So they have all of these emblems taken from the Canticles of Canticles. The sun, beautiful, bright as the sun. The moon, beautiful as the moon. But the moon is here, at her feet, upside down, the way it should be, according to Francisco Pacheco, who defined how the Immaculada Concepcion should be presented. A young girl. And there you have the Tower of David, the fountain in my garden, a garden in closed lock, the rose of Sharon, the lily, the cedar of Lebanon, the spring of running waters, and I don't know what else to find here, the mirror of chastity. And the two angels there, instead of crowning her, they bring flowers. So again, this tells a story. The ladder, I do not know why there is a ladder. I tried to ask, why is there a ladder here for the tower? And I do not find a tree per se unless this is a tree. There, it would be the tree of Jesse. That will be the ancestry of the Blessed Mother. So this whole thing is so, you are lost. Even us, I guess, when we first look at this, what does it mean? Why do we have all of this? But fortunately, if you went to a Catholic school, you are taught all of this about the Blessed Mother. And I am one of the most, well, I would say a fortunate one, because we were taught religious art in my school. And here you have the deposition. It's not the normal way uh, that they show the deposition. Normally, she's sitting on her lap, across her lap. But here, you see, again, the kind of perspective being given, and the stature, the proportion. She is part kneeling, I think. I don't think she's sitting down, because that's her knee, and he is hanging on to it, and she's there being cradled in the mother's arm. These are the instruments of the passion. Unless there was somebody very knowledgeable, a priest, or there was something being copied, you would not be able to depict this kind of scene. But that means also that these people carving are already at this point very sophisticated, or they know about religion also, because it is with feeling that this is all imparted. Now, this brings a lot of memory, beside that it is a very beautiful relieve, very thick wood. I said memory because I know how hard it was to negotiate to get this particular uh, relieve. It's from Cebu. And this is Saint Augustine. He's a doctor of the church, a theologian. This scene is connected to the mystery of the Trinity. Remember the story? He was walking the seashore. He meets a little boy trying to put water in a hole, and he said, "What are you doing? That is impossible. You cannot put the sea into that little hole." The child replies, "It's much easier for me to be able to do that than for you to solve the mystery of the Trinity." And Saint Augustine realizes that it was the child Jesus himself talking to him. And the first carvings from that period, I have not seen it here, is of him sitting with a book, contemplating. But when sometime apparently still puzzled, but what is still going on, the Blessed Virgin comes and appears in a vision and talks to him. And there is also, because he's a doctor of the church, the Holy Spirit guides and whispers to him inspiration, maybe instructions of what is to be done. But he's a doctor of the church as well as a bishop. But take a look, he's sitting at a chair, and there you have a pineapple um, design motif, this, which is very similar to what you find in San Agustin Church. Remember the pulpit? You have the same motif there. And the angel here with the beautiful wings. This is a very good carver. And this one takes the breath away because this story begins somewhere in the 12th century when they tried to represent the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit with the cross. But here it's differently done. By the 15th century, they added elements, and here in the Philippines, I don't know for what century this was, perhaps 18th century, you have the dove up there, and this is the symbol of the Trinity. But God the Father is very young, and he's wearing a paper tiara. And that, according to the book, says that it means he is recognizing the supremacy of the Catholic Church. And look at that, the Indre is not on the cross. It is hanging from the neck of God the Father. And that is the Christ. He is planted on earth together with Mary and Saint John. And you have the heavenly scene full of clouds enveloping there. But the Father is sitting down, wearing a short robe and trousers and shoes. Isn't that delicious? It's something so it looks inappropriate, but it's there. It's just so compelling, and it completes the whole scene. Even the Blessed Mother's face here, if you look at it very closely, she's smiling. She's not crying. And Saint John also has a kind of expression on his face. Now, the Patronato Real, of course, is subsidies given by the King of Spain to all of the churches so that they get very good carvers. They pay for very, very uh, good wood. And you have this result. These two, again, my memory of these two is how hard we went through to negotiate getting this and how much to pay for it. More than anything else, it's what I remember. But every time I look at San Gregorio Magno, I always have to touch him. It says, don't touch. But I always trip very slowly and touch. Also, they're like friends, San Fernando Rey and San Gregorio Magno. This one, if you look at him from the back, there's no hole. It's solid. This one also, I think it's solid, yes. I think I'm taking too long. And this one, you have to see it from a perspective. It is the risen Christ for the ascension. And it's almost like it's dancing. It's fantastic, actually, the movement, the way this feet is leaping up there. You have to see it. Go to the museum. You have to look for this one. Oh, you have to look at all those other things, especially the little bottle. And this one too is San Mateo. See how very, very, this is, I think he has a pouch here because he's a tax collector. But by this time, take a look at how well they can carve the vestments of Santos. Oops. Sorry, there's a few more. Ba't tayo nawala? Okay, no, I'm already here. Share. Sorry about that. Now, I said this is a hybrid collection. This too is very, very important part of the collection. It's so amazing. Unfortunately, I cannot show how this image evolved because I do not have the other santos that would show it. I don't have it. IA does not have it. And I have to borrow and get permission to be able to show that. I couldn't do that. But here, this is called Christ of the Passion. As a young boy, take a look at him. He holds the globe. The cross is always missing, but there is also the skull of Adam, the death. In Spain and Portugal, you would have a standing image of of a child that is naked, but he would be stepping on a skull, and he would be blessing you with his right hand, and the left hand would hold a globe. So they would refer to him as Salvador del Mundo. But in Goa, Sri Lanka, Macau, Japan, there will be interaction in the Philippines. And from here, will evolve the image of the Good Shepherd, the young Good Shepherd. And this one, however, does not sit on that, what they call the rockeries. He's sitting here somewhere. And he doesn't have any lamb or a gourd. He is really trying to think, he is really thinking of his death, what is to come. So this is a distillation of that. It departs from the old tradition of Goa and Macau, and I have seen other things from Sri Lanka. This is very, very unique. And it's not a big one. You can almost just ignore it, but it's there. So if you have time, please visit the museum and take a look at all of this and help us conserve it, please. It is the story of our country. It is the story of our faith, and it is the story of the conquest of the Filipinas. Thank you very much.
Thank you po, Mrs. G, for that presentation. It was a very enlightening talk. Now, uh, the word mamaracho was mentioned earlier, and we are reminded of the talk that we previously had with Floyd Quintos. It was our 7th episode, I think. And in his talk, he stated that the mamaracho is a Spanish term for defective and imperfect. And as such, the colonizer perceived these objects as unworthy of veneration. And they even used the term however, for if I'm going to cite Dr. Clodoveo Nacorda in his Handumanan catalog, beauty is relative, and for the colonized who made the mamaracho, these objects were the personification of the divine. So the devotion is very important. The images are before these are heritage objects, and before they are aesthetics, these are primarily objects of devotion. So uh, folk santos are often underrated and misunderstood and dismissed as primitive. And however, upon closer reflection, this art form, which diverged from the approved, so to speak, church style, this art form answered very specific spiritual and psychological needs that were felt and deemed important by the masses. So we are reminded, one comes into mind the child who makes a finger painting. Now, for us adults, the painting may not be beautiful and may not be much, but for the child, it is a masterpiece. It is a perfect work. So it is the way we perceive things versus the way how the maker perceived it. Those two diverging points are very interesting to reflect on. And I think we're now going to proceed with open forum. So, right. So it's always nice to see familiar names constantly turning up in our Intramuros learning sessions. So shout out to our regulars, Ed Ibanez and Agnes Mix from the Association of Tour Guides of Negros. Hello po. And Oscar Medalla as well. Thank you for tuning in. And we also have viewers from Rome. Hello, Miss Fortunata Atienza Copala. And we have a viewer from Guam. Hello, Mr. Alvin J. Ancheta. So for the Q&A, I'd like to remind everyone that if you have questions, feel free to raise them. And if you are in Zoom, the Q&A button is below the screen. And if you are on Facebook, you can ask questions in the comment section. Due to limited airtime, not all questions will be answered on air, but our IA team will be working very hard in the background to try to respond to as many questions in writing. So, right, our first question is from Cecil Rosqueta. So she emailed this question. Uh, wait. So recently, news trended about a painting in Spain that underwent restoration process under an amateur restorer. But what happened after the process was that the images were left unrecognizable despite attempts to fix it. Ang tanong ko po, meron po ba tayong batas sa mga ganitong mga pagkakamali? So since she emailed these questions beforehand, I managed to Google what she was referring to. So if I may share, so this is the case of the botched restoration. This was an article from BBC last Tuesday. So this is by Esteban Murillo of the Immaculada Concepcion. It was a furniture restorer who did this, and 1,200 euros were reportedly spent. And then we have another one. This is from 2012. So it is an image of Ecce Homo. uh, there was this well-meaning parishioner who tried to help the parish. So she tried to restore the fresco. But what happened was the image of the Christ eventually got the nickname the Christ monkey. So returning to the question of Cecil, uh, do we have any forms of regulations here in our country so as to regulate the practice of restoring antiques and religious images? So, do we have that currently?
Actually, it is a universal law for conservation and restoration that you do not change anything. You conserve. If something in such a bad condition, you first conserve. You conserve, that means so you can stabilize it. Once it's stabilized, then you can probably recreate the image, but you need several studies before you can do that. And who gave the permission? It's wrong to think that just some anybody says, "Oh, I can donate so much money," and "Oh, my repairman, my car repair painter, my car repairman can do that, can paint." But those are entirely different things. I would say that I don't really see how it's connected to what I have been talking about, but you have to get real conservators to study them. Look at the original and compare. Ang layo naman ng original sa ginawa. I mean, it doesn't stand. You don't have to be an intellectual to be able to say na mali naman yung ginawa na yan. Hindi mo alam kung sino ang kinopyahan, di ba? Where was that done? In abroad?
Yes po.
So why is that connected to us? In what sense? Do you want, are you seeking an explanation that we must not do the same thing here? We shouldn't. We try our best. We did that in San Agustin, di ba? And I think IA and the National Museum, also Santa Ana, they did a very good job there. And conservation was done without changing anything. Conservation, restoration are two different things also sometimes. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am. So our next question is from Emmanuel Sakay. So, is there any significant connection to the introduction of images in the Philippines to the Filipinos in the Philippines to the current religious practice of wiping the images of saints? So, how was this? How did it start, and how was this adopted? Was it really part of the local practices? Or was this introduced as well?
I really wouldn't know about the practice of, I think in a sense, it's because you try to partake of the, like the magic that is contained in the image. You see, a lot of us are animist pa. We're animistic. So we think that an object can contain something, some properties that can be passed on to us. Like we venerate the Nazareno, and touching the Nazareno is so important. We believe it, that just by touching, you get blessings, you get what you want. But that is faith na. You're thinking of faith. But when did it start? When was it practiced? It's everywhere. You've seen that. Even in Mexico, you see people wiping Santos, but then now, of course, they close off everything, so you can't do that. But for instance, in Mexico, you will see a lot of the poorer people clustering over the dead Christ. Hindi pinapansin the other images. So I went to them and I said, "Why do you come here? It's a long queue, really." And then they said, "Oh, because he's dead. Oh, because he knows what pain is. Because he died for us." So there is that empathy. When you empathize, you try to catch a bit of that. If you touch, you feel like you've been blessed also. I think. I don't know how it is. I like Santos, but I don't really go around wiping uh, or kissing, except, di ba, pag Good Friday, we kiss the cross. Pero I don't believe in that sense. I like to look at them. I like to appreciate them. I try to understand them and what they're trying to say to me. for me, the mamarochos that you are saying before, or that Floyd was saying, it was done to make us feel inferior. The priest who called them mamarochos and didn't want, it really means grotesqueries. It's a collection, like the word in Spain, mamaroscados, I think that's what it is, where you have a collection of grotesque images or figures. But I don't think he was insulting us, but he didn't want the faces of divinity to look like that. To him, they look ugly. But to us, the one who made it is something that of beauty. It means something to him. So he wants it to be blessed. Operating on different planes here. You look at it from an anthropological point of view. So anything that is intended to be what it is even a stone. If I say that is to be worshipped, it is that you do it because it's in your being, it's in your head that is what you want to believe in. But ugly, it doesn't enter. My bottle is so ugly, but to me it's so essential. The faith is there so much more than the one in the decanter. Sorry about that. I like ugly things. Mukhang ganun ang lumalabas, ano?
Thank you po. So our next is from Jose Antonio Lorenzo Tamayo. Hi, Dr. Gatbonton. In the article of Zobel, he categorized these images as informal or popular images. Meanwhile, Chanko of Panay categorized this as primitive. In what category do these images fit in contemporary times? Can we even categorize these images as a subcategory of classical art, or is it a unique category in itself? Thank you very much.
Like I said, it is like saying, is this high art, low art? Primitive art has been a no-no to people. Let's say if you're studying in UP, they'll kill you if you use the word primitive, because it's supposed to be pejorative. It really is not. It's simply being unskilled, unlearned. Because if you're thinking of art, you're thinking of a form, you're thinking of a discipline, right? And if you're talented, maybe you don't need that, but you still have the skill. So, like I was saying before, in the provinces and even Combes who had witnessed, whatever they need, they will provide for themselves. So I cannot afford, I'm a poor farmer, I cannot afford to hire a sculptor, or I cannot afford to buy a plaster cast saint. I can't. But I have this piece of wood. I will do it myself. The best I can, I know how. And I will bring it to the church to be blessed. Yun ang problema. The priest says, but that doesn't look like the Blessed Virgin. That doesn't look like anything. But to the person who did it, it means something. And so you are now in a category, I would say, naive art is a better form, right? It's not primitive, but naive is a kind of innocence, right? That allows you to believe in the capacity of something.
Thank you, ma'am. So we're running out of time. So we're going to end the Q&A now. And for those who have missed this episode, or for those who came in late, you can view our YouTube channel later. So we're going to upload this episode. And for those who'd like to ask questions, so you can go to, you can email our speaker cheetahgat@yahoo.com. So you can email her if you have any more questions. So it is unfortunate that we have already run out of time. So for right, and then for future episodes, stay tuned so you can follow us via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we are also now available in Google Arts and Culture. So uh, Dr. Esperanza Gatbonton presented a lot of images earlier in the presentation. So we have digitized most of them, and you can view them uh, via our channel at the Google Arts and Culture. Just key in Intramuros Administration. And let me also take this opportunity to promote our webinar tomorrow, our 15th episode. So it will be by Desiree Ann Cuabanipayo from the Philippine World War II Memorial Foundation. And her talk will be about Heroes of World War II, Part 1, Escoda, Abad Santos, and Lim. So please, everyone is invited to take part in this webinar. And before we end, Dr. Gatbonton, would you like to say some final words?
Well, just thank you very much for bringing the attention of people to different points of view of how we look at it. For me, this is part of our heritage, and we must build our consciousness, our own reaction to them. Don't listen to other people saying this and that. From the point of view of Westerners, it's nothing. But for us, these are precious heritage that must be conserved. This is our own thoughts, our feelings. This is our wika. It's our soul coming out. Okay? Thank you. God bless.
Thank you din po. Thank you, Dr. Gatbonton, and thank you to everyone who joined in our webinar today. And see you again in our next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye po.
Akala ko ba sabi niya?